Hey everyone, and welcome back to ExtremeRigs.net. I am Stren, and today we're going to be looking at the Asus Strix Tactic Pro mechanical keyboard. Ta-da! This is a mechanical keyboard, full size, that also comes with extra macro keys. It comes with 4 different switch options. They're all from Cherry. So you get the Cherry MX Black, Red, Blue, or Brown, which is a very good combination of keys. If we take a look at the actual keyboard itself, we can run over some of the functions. So here it is. So you can see it kind of continues the Strix theme with these kind of wings. Strix has this kind of owl vibe going on. And it also has a kind of orangey color. So all these keyboards do light up orange. You can see the cable here, it is pretty meaty. It is a USB cable, and you can see it's really quite long. It has a really cool grip on the USB head itself. It's not too interesting, but the one thing we didn't like about the cable, it's not removable. There's no socket here, this is just permanently attached, and it is what it is. It is, however, a good cable. The other stuff you'll see on here, the first obvious thing, 10 macro keys here. You'll also see another 3 macro keys here, and you probably won't be able to see, but along the function keys there's also macro markings there too. So as you say, this has 21 macro keys, however not all of them are dedicated. You get the 10 here and 3 here that are dedicated, and then you get 8 function keys that can also be remapped as macro keys. This is not a keyboard where any key can be a macro. You'll also see a bunch of LEDs across here, and they also illustrate some of the other functions. The first 3 are P1 to P3, those are pre-programmed hardware modes, configuration modes that are saved into the keyboard. Through software you can have as many modes as you want, but the keyboard itself can only store 3. You also get G, which is the gaming mode. That means it's going to disable some of the things like the Windows key, so you can't accidentally press that and get alt tabbed out. Then the M, the record, and the NK rollover, so macros, and then an NK rollover mode. This has a huge amount of NK rollover capability. I'm gonna check the box real quick, but I think it said 100 keys. Let's see what it says. Yeah, so it claims 100 keys can be pressed at once, which is essentially the whole keyboard. That's more keys than your hands can probably cover. So unless you're like really face rolling on this thing, you're never going to need that many. But the nice thing is, in some competitions, they do not like keyboards with NK rollover capability because they see it as unfair. So there's a mode that lets you disable that so that you go to the standard 6 key rollover, which is still enough for most people. These macro keys are quite nice because it gives you another finger that can be used to actually press them. So if you're doing your standard kind of WASD, you can hit these macro keys easily with your little finger, but you can also hit these conveniently with your thumb. So, if we look at the competition, the Razer keyboards are kind of nice because they let you set any key to a macro. However, I don't believe they have separate macro keys. Corsair, on the other hand, have a huge bank of macro keys on the side here, almost way too many, where it's kind of too far to reach to get to them. But Corsair don't have these lower buttons. And worth noting is that every single switch, every single full-size switch on here is a mechanical switch. There's no kind of short-changing. Sometimes when you buy a mechanical keyboard, the main keys will be mechanical switches, and then sometimes the spacebar will be something different, but all of these are exactly the same switch. Obviously these little guys are not full-size mechanical switches, they're something else. I'm not quite sure what they are. I think they might be on-runs, but I'm not sure. So, as I alluded to earlier, settings can be saved in the hardware profile of the keyboard. You can configure all of that using the Strix software, which can be downloaded or comes in the box. And so that's kind of nice. You don't have to install the software to use any of the pre-programmed macros. So for example, if you want to have a program for gaming, for your, if you're a Battlefield junkie and you want one program for Battlefield, and then maybe you want a lot of keyboard shortcuts for Photoshop, you can have one for Battlefield and one for Photoshop. And then if you take this keyboard and plug it into your buddy's laptop or something for some reason, those will still work without installing any software, which is great. We like that. So lots of positives here. It's built pretty strong. It's got good feet on it. It's comfortable. There's a lot of good things about the keyboard, but what are the negatives? Well, the first one we mentioned was the lack of removable cable. It's not a huge deal, but we'd like that. After all, this is not a cheap keyboard. The retail is around $170, and so for that kind of price, you kind of start to expect everything to be perfect and to have every feature possible. So what do some of the competition have? The other thing the competition has, for example, the Corsair keyboard also has RGB programmable backlighting. The backlighting on these keys, while it's customizable in terms of brightness, it is only orange, which is the Strix theme. And that's also a little disappointing because, for a $170 keyboard, I would kind of like to see that. There's some other little niggles too. This kind of random orange line around here, it's kind of, it's not bad, but it's just kind of on its own out here. I don't see the point of it in the design. You also get some media keys, so you get a volume control. That's a slidey thing here. And then, mute, skip forward, skip backwards, play, pause. But what you don't get is any headphone socket, microphone socket, or USB port. And that's something that other high-end keyboards do have. So this is a good keyboard, but I would say that there's work to do on it. The other thing we didn't like is the software for this is, it's called the Strix Tactic software or whatever it is. But it's a different program to the ROG Gladius software. So when we were using this and the Gladius, in order to configure one, we had to install one piece of Asus software that would have worked for the Strix keyboard and the Strix mouse, but the software for the ROG mouse and keyboard is different, and I don't know why they couldn't have combined those two. So a little annoyance, but there we go. Either way, we do like this keyboard. We're not big macro fans though, so personally I wouldn't pay the extra money for the macro functionality, but if you're really into macros, this is definitely one of the ones to consider. So that's it from us. We'll be back with more videos very shortly. Subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. That's it for now.